My name is Sheila, and I'm 56 years old. I never expected my life would take such a dramatic turn at my sister Amanda's wedding reception last spring. The grand ballroom was filled with laughter music and the clinking of champagne glasses. My husband Trevor stood with his work friends, his voice growing louder with each drink. I saw him gesturing toward me, a familiar smirk on his face that made my stomach tighten. Little did he know that I held a secret that would soon change everything between us. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from, hit that like and subscribe button, and stick around to see how I finally stood up for myself. The story of how I ended up in this situation begins 22 years ago when Trevor and I got married. We were young in love and full of dreams for our future together. I came from a wealthy family. My father was a successful entrepreneur who built Westbrook Solutions from nothing into a thriving technology company with over 500 employees. When he passed away 10 years ago, he left the company entirely to me, his only child, who showed genuine interest in the business. I made the decision to keep my ownership a secret from everyone except my sister Amanda. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted to live a normal life without people treating me differently because of my wealth and status. I hired a trusted CEO to run the day-to-day operations while I maintained ultimate control from a distance. In our home, I had a secret office in the basement where I worked when Trevor was away, making critical decisions that affected hundreds of people's livelihoods, including, ironically, my husband's. Trevor didn't know that when he applied for a marketing position at Westbrook Solutions 5 years ago, I was the one who ultimately approved his hiring. I stayed completely out of his performance reviews and promotions. Those were earned entirely on his own merit. But I did watch from afar as he climbed the corporate ladder, eventually becoming marketing director 2 years ago. Our marriage had been relatively happy in the beginning. We raised 2 wonderful children, our son Jacob, who is now studying for his MBA at Northwestern, and our daughter Lisa, who became a pediatrician and works at Boston Children's Hospital. I was proud of being a devoted mother and creating a loving home. I cooked delicious meals, maintained our beautiful house, supported Trevor's career, and was there for every school event and milestone, all while secretly running a major technology company. Balancing these 2 roles wasn't easy. I would wake up at 5 in the morning to handle urgent business matters before preparing breakfast for the family. During school hours, I would attend virtual meetings, review financial reports, and make executive decisions. Then I would transform back into the devoted housewife before Trevor and the kids returned home. When we first met, Trevor admired my intelligence and ambition. We had discussed the possibility of me pursuing a career, but when our children came along, we mutually agreed that I would stay home while they were young. He was appreciative of my sacrifices and the work I did to maintain our household. We were partners, each contributing in our own way. Those early years were filled with genuine love and respect. We would talk for hours about our dreams, laugh at inside jokes, and support each other through challenges. Trevor would bring me flowers for no reason and thank me for making our house a home. I believed we had built a solid foundation that would last a lifetime. Little did I know that as Trevor's career advanced, his perspective on my contribution to our family would dramatically change. The man who once appreciated having a loving wife at home would soon look down on the very role he had once valued, never suspecting that the just a housewife he increasingly disdained was secretly the owner of the company signing his paychecks. As Trevor's career at Westbrook Solutions flourished, I noticed subtle changes in his attitude toward me and my role in our family. What started as occasional comments about how easy my days must be gradually evolved into something more dismissive and hurtful. The man who once expressed gratitude for my home-cooked meals now complained if dinner wasn't ready exactly when he wanted it, often comparing our home to his efficiently run workplace. "You know, Sheila," he said one evening, as I served the pasta I'd spent hours preparing, "at work, we have deadlines and consequences if things aren't delivered on time. Must be nice to have such a relaxed schedule." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to tell him that just that morning, I had approved a $2 million budget for his department's new marketing campaign, a decision that had required hours of financial analysis and strategic planning on my part. Trevor was quickly climbing the corporate ladder at Westbrook, and with each promotion came a noticeable increase in his ego. When he became marketing director, he came home with an expensive bottle of champagne and spent the entire evening talking about how his brilliant strategies had caught the attention of upper management. If only he knew who that upper management really was. The CEO said my ideas could transform the company's entire market position. He boasted, pouring himself another glass. Not bad for a guy who started in the mailroom of his last company, right? I've really made something of myself. The implication hung in the air, unlike me who had just stayed at home. Our arguments about household roles became more frequent. What had once been a mutual agreement about our family structure was now portrayed as my failure to contribute meaningfully. The world has changed, Sheila, Trevor said during one particularly heated discussion. Women have careers now. They contribute financially. What exactly do you bring to the table anymore? The kids are grown. I tried explaining the value of maintaining our home, the emotional labor that went into creating a stable environment, the countless hours spent supporting not just our children, but him as well. But my words seemed to bounce off him unheard and unappreciated. That's all well and good, he dismissed, but my colleagues' wives have real jobs and manage their households. Jennifer's wife is a surgeon. Mike's wife runs her own accounting firm. What do you do all day? Run your company, I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked away, retreating to my secret office in the basement after he left for work the next day, where I approved his department's request for 3 new staff positions. My sister Amanda was the only one who knew my secret. During our weekly lunch dates, I would vent my frustrations. I don't understand why you keep this from him, she said during one of these sessions. Imagine the look on his face if he knew you own Westbrook. I wanted him to love me for me, I explained, not for my money or status, and I wanted to raise our kids normally without the complications wealth can bring. But things have changed, Amanda pointed out. He's not respecting you anymore. Maybe it's time for the truth. I wasn't ready. Despite everything, I still loved Trevor and hoped he would remember the values that had drawn us together in the first place. When Amanda announced her engagement to Daniel, I was thrilled for her. The wedding would be a lavish affair with many of Trevor's colleagues in attendance, since Daniel also worked at Westbrook as a finance executive. As the preparations got underway, I felt a growing uneasiness. Trevor had been spending more time with his work friends lately, the same people who would be at the wedding, and whenever he returned from these outings, his dismissiveness toward me seemed amplified. The guys were talking about retirement plans today, he said after one happy hour. Jason's wife has been investing in real estate for years. They already have 3 income properties. What do we have to show for 20 years together, my 401k, and a house that's only half paid off? Each comment was like a small cut, barely noticeable on its own, but painful as they accumulated over time. I began questioning my decision to keep my ownership secret. Was I being false to myself, to our relationship? But every time I considered revealing the truth, I worried about what it would say about our marriage that I kept such an enormous secret for so long. As Amanda's wedding approached, Trevor became increasingly absorbed in work and his office social circle. The night before the rehearsal dinner, he didn't even notice that I had spent hours reviewing quarterly projections for Westbrook's new product line, projections that his marketing team had helped create. To him, I was just his wife sitting on the couch, apparently doing nothing important with my time. Little did he know the tension that had been building in our relationship was about to reach a breaking point that neither of us could have anticipated. The day of Amanda's wedding arrived with perfect spring weather, sunshine streaming through cherry blossoms, and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of fresh flowers. The ceremony took place in the garden of the Riverside Hotel, an elegant venue overlooking the Hudson River. My sister looked radiant in her fitted lace gown, and I couldn't help but shed a few tears as she and Daniel exchanged vows. After the ceremony, guests moved to the grand ballroom for the reception. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings tables were adorned with elaborate floral arrangements, and the dance floor was already filling with joyful guests. It should have been a perfect day of celebration. I noticed Trevor immediately gravitating toward a group of his colleagues from Westbrook, his direct supervisor, John Barrett, the head of sales, Richard Thompson, and several members of the marketing team. They were all gathered near the open bar, drinks already in hand. "I'm going to catch up with the guys," Trevor said, barely waiting for my acknowledgement, before abandoning me at our assigned table. I spent the next hour chatting with family members and Amanda's friends, periodically glancing over at Trevor's increasingly rowdy group. Their laughter grew louder with each round of drinks drawing attention from nearby tables. I could see Trevor at the center gesturing dramatically as he told some story that had the others doubled over in amusement. Around 8 o'clock, I was speaking with my elderly aunt when I felt a hand grip my arm. "Sheila, there you are." Trevor's voice was too loud, his breath heavy with the scent of whiskey. "The guys want to meet my other half. Come on." Before I could protest, he was pulling me toward his circle of colleagues. I straightened my pale blue dress, the one I'd carefully selected to look elegant but not flashy, and tried to prepare myself for whatever was coming. "Gentlemen, this is the wife," Trevor announced, his arm draped heavily across my shoulders. "Sheila, you know John and Richard, and this is the rest of the marketing dream team." I smiled politely, extending my hand to those I hadn't met before. "It's lovely to meet you all. I've heard so much about Westbrook from Trevor." "So," Richard leaned forward, drink sloshing slightly. "Trevor tells us you're a homemaker. What's that like in this day and age?" Before I could answer, Trevor let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, Sheila doesn't do much. Keeps the house tidy, watches her cooking shows, you know." I felt my cheeks flush. "Actually, We were just talking about the new merger," John interrupted. "The CEO's being very hush-hush about who's buying us out. Trevor's team is working overtime on the rebranding." Trevor puffed out his chest. "We're handling the entire marketing transition. Critical work. Sheila wouldn't understand. She doesn't really get the business world." The conversation continued around me, as though I wasn't there, all technical terms and inside jokes about projects and deadlines. I stood silently, feeling increasingly invisible, until Richard's wife Sandra joined the circle. "Sandra here is killing it in real estate," Richard boasted, pulling his wife close. "Top seller in her agency 3 years running." "That's wonderful," I said sincerely. "Congratulations." "What about you?" Sandra asked. "Do you work outside the home?" There was a moment, just a brief moment, when I considered telling the truth. I could almost picture their faces if I revealed that I was actually their ultimate boss, the owner of Westbrook Solutions, the mysterious figure whose approval they sought for budgets and initiatives. But before I could respond, Trevor burst into laughter. "Her useless, just a housewife." The words hit me like a physical blow. The circle erupted in laughter, some genuine, some clearly uncomfortable. I stood, frozen humiliation washing over me in hot waves. "Trevor, that's not—" I began, my voice barely audible over their continued chuckling. "No, seriously," Trevor continued, clearly enjoying being the center of attention. "While we're all hustling and building careers, she's at home watching Netflix and ordering groceries online. I can't even remember the last time she did something impressive." More laughter. John slapped Trevor on the back. "Man, my wife would kill me if I talked about her like that." "Sheila knows I'm just teasing," Trevor said, though his eyes held no warmth. "Right, honey. It's just funny because everyone else here actually contributes something valuable to society." Each word was another nail in the coffin of my respect for the man I had married. I looked at the faces around me, some amused, some embarrassed on my behalf, and felt something break inside me. 22 years of marriage, and this was how my husband truly saw me. "I need to use the restroom," I managed to say, extracting myself from Trevor's grip. I walked away with as much dignity as I could muster, the sound of their conversation continuing behind me without missing a beat. I pushed through the crowd, barely acknowledging the greetings from other guests, focused only on finding somewhere private where I could collect myself. My sister's perfect wedding day, and all I wanted to do was disappear. I locked myself in the largest stall of the elegant hotel restroom, grateful for the momentary solitude. My hands trembled as I leaned against the cool marble wall, trying to control my breathing. The words kept echoing in my head, useless, just a housewife. 22 years of building a life together, and that was all I was worth to him. A gentle knock on the stall door startled me. "Sheila, are you in there?" It was Amanda's voice, concern evident, despite her attempt to sound casual. I opened the door to find my sister standing there, in her wedding gown, looking beautiful and worried all at once. "You shouldn't be in here," I said. "It's your wedding day. You should be celebrating." "I saw what happened," she said, taking my hands in hers. "One of my bridesmaids told me Trevor was being awful to you in front of his work friends. Are you okay?" The simple kindness of her question broke my carefully constructed composure. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I shook my head. "He called me useless Amanda, in front of everyone. His entire department was there laughing at me." Amanda's expression hardened. "That's it. I've stayed quiet about this for years because you asked me to, but this has gone too far. You need to tell him the truth." "And what would that accomplish?" I asked, dabbing at my eyes with a tissue. "If he only respects me because I own his company, then our marriage means nothing." "This isn't about saving your marriage anymore," Amanda said firmly. "This is about standing up for yourself. You are not useless, Sheila. You run a company that employs hundreds of people, including that ungrateful husband of yours. You raised 2 amazing children. You've supported everyone around you while hiding your own accomplishments. Enough is enough." As her words sank in, something shifted inside me. The hurt began to transform into something else. Resolve. "You're right," I said slowly. "It's time." "What are you going to do?" Amanda asked. I straightened my shoulders and looked at my reflection in the mirror. Despite the smudged mascara, I recognized the determined woman staring back at me, the same woman who had quietly guided Westbrook Solutions through economic downturns and technological revolutions, who had made tough decisions affecting hundreds of lives. "I'm not going to create a scene at your wedding," I assured her. "But on Monday, I'm going to stop hiding. I've spent too many years downplaying my worth to protect Trevor's ego." I outlined my plan to Amanda. Not a vindictive scheme for public humiliation, but a straightforward revelation of the truth. I would arrange a company-wide meeting through my CEO, introducing myself as the owner of Westbrook Solutions. No dramatic accusations, no revenge, just the simple truth that had been hidden for too long. "He'll be shocked," Amanda said, a small smile playing at her lips. "They all will be," I agreed. "But this isn't about shocking them. It's about reclaiming my identity. I've been living a half-life, afraid that being fully myself would somehow damage my relationship. But the relationship is already damaged, not by my success, but by Trevor's inability to see value in anything that doesn't come with a paycheck and a title." As we talked, I felt the crushing weight of hurt beginning to lift, replaced by a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. I had allowed Trevor's definition of worth to become my measuring stick, forgetting that I had built and maintained a successful company, all while creating a loving home. "I should get back to my reception," Amanda said, squeezing my hand. "Are you ready to come out?" I took one last look in the mirror, fixed my makeup, and nodded. "I'm ready." We returned to the celebration, where Trevor was still with his colleagues, seemingly unaware of the pain he had caused, or the fact that his wife had even left the group. I spent the remainder of the evening avoiding him, dancing with my nephews, chatting with old friends, and genuinely enjoying myself despite the earlier humiliation. When Trevor and I returned home that night, he was too intoxicated to notice my unusual silence. As he snored beside me, I lay awake planning exactly how I would reclaim my power and my dignity in the days to come. "You have no idea what's coming," I whispered to his sleeping form, feeling not vindictive but resolute. No idea at all. The days following Amanda's wedding were surreal. I moved through our home like a ghost, cooking meals and maintaining our routine while my mind was elsewhere, meticulously planning every detail of what was to come. Trevor, oblivious to the storm brewing, interpreted my quietness as simple fatigue from the wedding festivities. "You're getting too old for these late nights," he joked over breakfast on Monday morning, not looking up from his phone as he scrolled through emails. I merely smiled, watching him gulp down the coffee I'd prepared. "Have a good day at work," I said, the irony of my words lost on him as he grabbed his briefcase and headed out. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I went to my hidden office in the basement and placed a call to Edward Morris, the CEO I'd appointed to run the day-to-day operations at Westbrook. "Edward, it's time," I said when he answered. "I need you to arrange a company-wide meeting for Friday morning. Everyone must attend, including all department heads and their teams." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Are you sure, Sheila? After all these years?" "Absolutely certain," I replied, my voice steady. "Prepare the board as well. I'll be there at 9 sharp." With the meeting arranged, I spent the next few days preparing. I selected a sharp charcoal business suit that had been hiding in the back of my closet, had my hair professionally styled, and compiled a folder with key documents demonstrating my ownership and the major decisions I'd made over the years. Each evening, Trevor came home talking about rumors of a major announcement at work. "Probably about the merger," he speculated over dinner on Wednesday. "John says it might mean restructuring. Good thing I'm indispensable to the marketing department." I nodded, letting him believe his own narrative while silently acknowledging that Friday's announcement would indeed change the structure of his world, just not in the way he imagined. On Thursday night, I laid out my suit and accessories. Trevor noticed and raised an eyebrow. "What's that for? You got a job interview or something?" His tone was mocking, reminiscent of his comments at the wedding. "Just an important meeting tomorrow," I said vaguely. He snorted. "What did the neighborhood book club finally get serious?" I let the comment slide, knowing it would be the last time I would tolerate such disrespect. Friday morning arrived bright and clear. I was up before dawn, showered and dressed before Trevor even stirred. I left a note saying I had errands to run and would see him later, knowing he would find me much sooner than he expected. I arrived at Westbrook's impressive glass headquarters at 8:30, meeting Edward in the lobby. Several executive assistants did double takes as I walked through the building, clearly trying to place my familiar face. "The board is waiting in the conference room," Edward informed me. They're surprised, to say the least. The board meeting was brief. Most members had never met me in person, though they had followed my directives for years. I explained the situation succinctly, answered their questions, and outlined what would happen in the company-wide gathering. "I'm not here to create chaos," I assured them. "I'm stepping into my rightful role as the owner of this company. Nothing will change operationally. Edward will continue as CEO with my full support, but it's time for transparency." At 9:45, I stood backstage in the company auditorium as employees filed in, filling the 500 seats. Through a gap in the curtains, I spotted Trevor and his marketing team taking seats in the 4th row. Trevor leaning over to whisper something that made his colleagues laugh. My heart pounded in my chest, but not from fear. For the first time in years, I felt fully aligned with my true self. Not just Trevor's wife, not just a homemaker, but Sheila Wilson, business owner and decision maker. At exactly 10 o'clock, Edward stepped onto the stage to address the packed auditorium. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your prompt attendance. Today is a significant day in Westbrook's history. For many years, our company has been owned by a single private shareholder who has chosen to remain anonymous while guiding our strategic direction through myself and the board. Today, that changes. I'd like to introduce you to the true owner of Westbrook Solutions, the person whose vision has shaped everything we've built together. Please welcome Mrs. Sheila Wilson." A confused murmur swept through the audience as I stepped onto the stage. I could see Trevor in the crowd, his expression transitioning from confusion to shock as recognition dawned. Beside him, his colleagues were whispering, connecting the dots between the woman on stage and Trevor's wife from the wedding. I took my place at the podium, surveying the sea of faces, my employees, though none of them had known it until this moment. "Good morning," I began, my voice clear and confident. "For those who don't know me, I'm Sheila Wilson. Some of you might recognize me as Trevor Wilson's wife." I paused, allowing my gaze to briefly meet Trevor's stunned one. "What you don't know is that I inherited Westbrook Solutions from my father 10 years ago and have been directing its operation ever since." The auditorium erupted in surprised conversation. I waited for it to settle before continuing. "I've chosen to reveal myself today because I believe in transparency and authentic leadership. Every person in this company contributes value in their own way, from our maintenance staff to our executives. Every role has dignity and purpose, and every person deserves respect." As I spoke about my vision for the company's future, emphasizing innovation, respect, and work-life balance, I could see Trevor shrinking in his seat, his face ashen. The same colleagues who had laughed at his jokes about his useless housewife were now stealing glances at him, their expressions a mixture of discomfort and schadenfreude. I concluded my address by announcing new company policies that had been in development for months: extended parental leave, flexible working arrangements, and a mentorship program designed to support employees with caregiving responsibilities. Westbrook Solutions recognizes that value isn't just created in the office, I said, making eye contact with various employees throughout the audience. It's created in homes and communities, in the invisible work that supports visible achievements. Thank you for your attention this morning. I look forward to working with all of you more directly in the future." The applause was thunderous as I stepped away from the podium. As people began to file out of the auditorium, I saw Trevor frozen in his seat, watching me with an unreadable expression. Our reckoning was coming, but it would not happen here, not in front of the company we both, in very different ways, had helped build. The aftermath of my revelation unfolded in ways I couldn't have fully anticipated. As the auditorium emptied, Trevor remained seated, staring straight ahead, as though in a trance. His colleagues awkwardly filed past him, a few patting his shoulder sympathetically, others clearly struggling to hide their amusement at his predicament. When nearly everyone had gone, he finally approached the stage where I was gathering my notes and speaking with Edward about next steps. "Could we have a moment?" Trevor asked, his voice uncharacteristically small. Edward glanced at me, and I nodded. "I'll be in my office later," he said, tactfully withdrawing. For several long seconds, Trevor and I simply looked at each other. The auditorium's vastness around us seemed to emphasize the distance that had grown between us over the years. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would it have mattered?" I countered. "Would you have treated me differently if you'd known I signed your paychecks?" "Of course it would have mattered," he exploded, then immediately lowered his voice. "You've been lying to me for our entire marriage." "Not lying," I corrected calmly. "Omitting. When we first met, the company wasn't mine yet. By the time I inherited it, we'd already established our dynamic. You the breadwinner, me the supportive wife. You seem comfortable with that arrangement." "But things changed," he insisted. "The kids grew up. You could have told me then." "Things did change," I agreed, "but not in the way you think. When the children were young, you valued what I did at home. You respected my contribution to our family. It was only when your career took off that I became useless in your eyes." Trevor had the grace to look ashamed. "I never meant—" "You did mean it," I interrupted. "Last weekend, in front of all your colleagues, you meant every word. Useless, just a housewife. Those were your exact words, Trevor." He ran a hand through his hair, visibly struggling. "It was just talk. The guys were bragging about their wives' careers, and I felt, I don't know, left out. So you tore me down to build yourself up." I said, not as an accusation, but as a simple statement of fact. "Do you have any idea how that felt to stand there while the man I've loved and supported for 22 years mocked me in front of his entire department?" "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time in years he seemed genuinely contrite. "I was wrong. I see that now." "Do you—" because I'm not convinced you're sorry about what you said. I think you're sorry about who I turned out to be, someone with power you didn't know about. Trevor flinched at the accuracy of my assessment. What happens now with us, I mean, and with my job. Your job is secure, I said. I've never interfered with your career, and I won't start now. Your performance reviews, promotions, those were all earned on merit, evaluated by your supervisors without my input. Relief washed over his face, followed quickly by uncertainty. And us? I picked up my portfolio, taking a moment to consider my response. That depends on you, Trevor. I won't live in the shadows anymore, diminishing myself to soothe your ego. If we have a future together, it needs to be built on mutual respect, not just for what we do, but for who we are. I walked down the steps from the stage, stopping when we were eye to eye. I'm going to my new office now. I'll be home this evening, and we can talk more then. I suggest you take the day to think about what kind of marriage you truly want. As I walked away, leaving him standing alone in the vast, empty auditorium, I felt neither triumph nor vindication, only a quiet certainty that whatever happened next, I would face it as my complete self. The next 3 months brought profound changes to both Westbrook Solutions and my marriage. At work, I established an office on the executive floor, taking a more visible role in the company's operations while still allowing Edward to handle day-to-day management. Employees who had known me only as Trevor's wife now sought my input on strategic decisions and innovative ideas. Trevor, to his credit, embarked on a difficult journey of self-reflection. The initial shock and embarrassment gave way to genuine remorse as he came to terms with how his behavior had affected me. We began marriage counseling, unpacking years of unspoken resentments and missed communications. I never saw what was happening to us, he admitted during one particularly emotional session. I got so caught up in climbing the corporate ladder that I started measuring everyone's worth by their job title or salary, including you, especially you. At home, small changes signaled larger shifts in our dynamic. Trevor began sharing more household responsibilities without being asked. He listened more attentively when I spoke about my day, genuinely interested in the challenges I faced at Westbrook. Most importantly, he stopped dismissing the value of domestic work. I tried making your lasagna recipe yesterday, he confessed one evening, displaying a slightly burnt casserole with pride. It's a lot harder than it looks. I had to call my mother twice for help, and it still doesn't taste like yours. I laughed, touched by the effort. It took me years to perfect that recipe. I know, he said seriously. I'm beginning to understand how much skill goes into all the things I took for granted. 6 months after my revelation, Westbrook held its annual holiday party. Trevor and I arrived together, no longer inhabiting separate worlds. As we mingled with our employees, I noticed how differently his colleagues treated him now. There was respect, but the easy camaraderie had been replaced with something more cautious. They're still adjusting, Trevor said when I mentioned it. So am I. The guy who mocked his useless housewife is still fresh in their memories. People's perceptions can change, I reminded him. Mine have, and they had. I'd come to recognize my own role in our marital breakdown, how my secrecy had created an unhealthy foundation, how my fear of changing our dynamic had allowed resentments to fester. We were both responsible for where we had ended up, though, in different ways. The process of rebuilding trust was slow and sometimes painful. There were setbacks, arguments where old patterns threatened to reemerge, moments of doubt on both sides. But gradually, something new and stronger began to take shape between us. I'm proud of you, Trevor said one night as we sat on our porch watching the sunset. Not because you own Westbrook, but because of how you lead it. The employees respect you. Edward says morale has never been higher. Thank you, I said, realizing how long it had been since I'd heard genuine admiration in his voice. That means a lot coming from you. I mean it, he continued. I've been watching you in action these past months. You're remarkable, Sheila. You always were. I just stopped seeing it. I reached for his hand, feeling the familiar calluses on his palm. We both stopped seeing each other clearly. Maybe that's what happens in long marriages sometimes. We create simplified versions of each other that fit our narratives. The real versions are more complicated, Trevor acknowledged, and more interesting. Our journey of healing continues even now. Some days are easier than others, but we're committed to building something authentic together, a partnership based on genuine appreciation for what each of us brings to our shared life. The greatest lesson I've learned through all of this is that our value isn't determined by job titles or paychecks or what others think of us. It comes from within, from the integrity with which we live, the care we show others, and the courage to stand in our truth even when it's difficult. I no longer hide any part of myself, not my business acumen, not my pride in creating a beautiful home, not my hopes or fears. And in being fully seen, I've discovered a freedom I never knew was possible. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, I hope you'll find the courage to step fully into your own light. Life is too short to make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort. Drop a comment below, sharing your own experience with being underestimated. Hit like and subscribe if this story touched you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their value isn't defined by others' perceptions. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are never just anything. You are everything you choose to be.